welcome to the deep dive. You've given us your sources, and well, we're here to pull out the most interesting and useful knowledge.
Exactly. Think of it as your cheat sheet to getting really informed on a topic fast.
Today, we're diving into the world of American photographer Duane Michals.
That's right. We've got his Wikipedia page and a really insightful essay called Storyteller, the photographs of Duane Michals.
And our mission, essentially, is to figure out what makes his work unique and why he's still relevant today.
Absolutely. Where should we start? His background.
Yeah, let's do that. So Duane Michals, born 1932, which, wow, makes him 93 this year. Still going.
Incredible. And his art interest started young, didn't it? Like 14.
Yeah, watercolor classes at the Carnegie Institute in Pittsburgh, then a BA from University of Denver in 53.
Right. And he tried Parsons for graphic design.
Briefly, yeah. But the key thing seems to be he's described as completely self-taught in photography.
Which is fascinating. That self-taught angle, it might explain why he wasn't afraid to break rules later on. No formal constraints, maybe?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It seems like a trip to the USSR in 1958 was the real spark for photography.
Ah, okay. And then his first show was pretty soon after, like 1963.
Exactly, in New York. But before he was strictly an art photographer, he did a lot of commercial work.
Oh, right, for magazines like Esquire and Mademoiselle?
Yeah, and even covered the filming of The Great Gatsby for Vogue in 74. Quite the gig.
That's a real range. Commercial gigs, then fine art.
And even in his commercial portrait work back then, he apparently liked photographing people in their own environments.
Oh, interesting. So not like the big studio guys, Avedon or Penn.
Right, a different approach,
Yeah.
more environmental.
That fits with his later work, maybe? That sense of narrative and place?
Could be. He also shot the 68 Summer Olympics for the Mexican government. Another interesting job.
Wow, okay. So a really varied early career.
Definitely. And then things started picking up art-wise. 1970, he gets an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York.
MoMA, okay. That's major validation early on.
Huge. And those early portraits became the basis for his book album.
Right. And he got an NEA grant in 76, too.
He did, solidifying that artistic recognition.
It's interesting how he also crossed into music visuals later.
Yeah. The Police's Synchronicity album cover in 83, that was him.
No way. I didn't know that was his iconic cover.
Wearing Richard Barron's Clouds Over Eden in 93 as well.
So clearly comfortable moving between different creative worlds. High art, pop culture.
Seems like it. Okay, so let's get into what really makes him Duane Michals, his big innovations.
Right, the sequences and the text. Both sources highlight these from the 60s and 70s.
Let's start with the photo sequences. His book sequences from 1970 is a prime example.
Yeah, telling a story across multiple frames instead of just one single shot. That was pretty radical then.
How did they typically work? Was it like a comic strip?
Sometimes, but often more subtle, like small shifts in expression or maybe an object moving slightly, implying time passing or an internal change, almost cinematic.
Okay. Capturing a feeling unfolding, maybe.
Exactly. Moving beyond just capturing a moment to capturing, well, a sequence of moments that add up to something more.
And then there's the handwritten text, adding words right onto the print or nearby.
Which is another huge break from tradition, right? The idea that the photo should stand alone.
Totally. He's adding this other layer. Thoughts or feelings the image itself can't quite convey.
It makes the viewing experience different. You're not just looking, you're reading his thoughts almost. It gets very personal.
Raises questions, too, about what a photo can and can't say on its own.
Definitely. It challenges that purity of the visual medium.
Now, what about influences on him? The sources list quite a few.
Yeah, an interesting mix. Balthus, William Blake, Lewis Carroll.
Thomas Eakins, Rene Magritte, Walt Whitman.
You can really see strands of those in his work, can't you? The surrealism of Magritte, maybe.
For sure, especially with the text and image play. Like Magritte's This Is Not a Pipe.
Exactly. And the literary folks, Blake, Carroll, Whitman, that points to his narrative drive, the poetic quality.
Makes sense. He wasn't just looking, he was telling. And he influenced others, too.
Oh, yeah. David Leventhal, Francesca Woodman are mentioned.
Both make sense. Leventhal's stage scenes, Woodman's personal, almost ghostly self-portraits.
Yeah, you can see that legacy of pushing boundaries, using photography for really personal expression.
There's a great quote from Michals in the essay about his goal. Something like, to see what the eye can't see.
Yes, exactly. He says, I'm not interested in what something looks like. I want to know what it feels like.
My reality has entered a realm beyond observation. Most photographers are always looking at life. They're looking at surfaces.
But unless a photographer transcends appearances, then it's always going to just be mere description. Powerful stuff.
It really sums it up. He's after the internal, the felt experience, not just the visual record.
And the sequences in text are his tools to get there, to get beyond just describing.
Okay, let's touch on themes. Wikipedia notes his work addressed gay themes, though he wasn't like an activist in the movement.
Right. It also mentions he felt political art could be impotent.
Interesting. So his focus seems more on the personal, the philosophical, the emotional realm.
It seems that way. Using his tools, the sequences, the text, to explore those internal landscapes rather than making overt political statements.
Which maybe gives the work a different kind of power, more universal perhaps.
Could be. Exploring the human condition through his own specific personal lens.
And just briefly on his personal life, grew up in McKeesport, Pennsylvania.
Raised Catholic, lives in New York City now.
And the sources mention his long-term partner, Frederick Gorey, passed away in 2017. They've been together since 1960.
Wow, since 1960. That's,
Yeah.
an incredible partnership.
It adds context, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Knowing these biographical details while looking at work that explores time, loss, love.
It definitely can add another layer, reminding you there's a real person and real experiences behind the art.
Okay, so his impact. We mentioned the MoMA show in '70, huge deal.
Definitely. And lots of other solo shows followed.
Yeah.
George Eastman House, ICP, Carnegie Museum.
Right. And he was in the important 1966 group show, Toward a Social Landscape.
Which is interesting because that show was really about redefining documentary. And while Michals' work is different, putting him there shows he was part of that conversation about photography's role.
Even if his landscape was more internal.
Exactly. And he's received plenty of awards over the years.
Yeah, Royal Photographic Society Fellowship, National Arts Club Gold Medal, International Photography Hall of Fame induction, just in 2020.
So clearly, the establishment recognizes his contribution. He's cemented in the history books.
Now, the essay we read had a really interesting take on his legacy today.
Right. It suggested his influence might be less obvious in, say, big gallery art trends right now. But it's actually really significant in photo book culture and certain kinds of documentary work.
That distinction is fascinating. So maybe not giant prints on gallery walls, but more in the intimate format of a book.
Yeah, or in photographers who use sequences or text in a more personal, narrative way. The essay points to people like Alex South.
Oh yeah, broken manual with photos, text, handwritten notes. You can totally see the connection.
Definitely. And Soth's Looking for Love, 1996, revisiting his own past work. Very Michals-esque in its personal reflection.
And Paul Graham too.
His sequences in a shimmer of possibility or the present, looking at everyday moments through multiple frames.
Capturing those fleeting things, again, using sequence to explore it rather than just one shot.
It shows that Michals' ideas about narrative, sequence, and personal voice have really permeated certain areas of photography.
There's another quote from Michals near the end of the essay that's worth mentioning.
The one about redefining photography.
Yeah. One must redefine photography, as it is necessary to redefine one's life in terms of one's own needs. The key word is expression, not photography, not painting, not writing. Only you can teach yourself.
It's such a powerful statement about artistic autonomy. Find your own way, your own needs, your own expression. Don't worry about the labels.
Pretty much sums up his whole career, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. The essay basically concludes he was always blurring boundaries, always redefining the medium on his own terms.
And in doing so, he kind of gave permission for others to do the same.
Exactly. Less a specific style to copy, more an ethos of exploration and personal truth.
So wrapping this up, our deep dive into Duane Michals really shows a photographer who wasn't content with just surfaces.
Not at all. He used those innovative techniques, sequences, text, to get at deeper emotions, at narratives, at what things feel like.
Yeah, moving way beyond mere description.
And that focus on personal expression, on looking past appearances, it feels relevant beyond just photography, you know?
How so?
Well, just in how we approach anything creatively, or even how we try to understand the world or ourselves. Looking for the feeling, not just the facts.
That's a great point, which leads us to our final thought for everyone listening.
Go on.
Maybe think about your own interests, whatever they are. How could you bring a more personal, expressive approach to them?
Right. How can you move beyond just observing or just describing to explore the deeper meanings, the connections that really matter to you?
Something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.